by my two colleagues, that's Ian and Isabella, where they covered how to complete the section on application details, data protection officer. They also looked at data collected or processed, and my two colleagues, that's Ian and Isabella, where they covered how to complete. Okay, so today we are going to look at disclosure and transfer of personal data, compression of Form 3 as our main topic. But we shall also have a quick run through on why the law was enacted, key definitions under the law, functions of the office, benefits of compliance with this law, and we shall also look at the practical bit on how to complete the registration. Without wasting time, allow me to start my presentation. With why the law was enacted in 2019. In 2019, the government of Uganda enacted the Data Protection and Privacy Act, and this law adequately provides for matters on data protection and privacy, on how personal data should be collected, rights of individuals whose personal data is collected, registration with personal data protection office, and also it provides the protection of the privacy of the individual and personal data, and also to regulate the collection and processing of personal information. We're also going to look at who does this law applies to. I want you to understand that this law applies to three categories. One, we have territorial scope. Two, we will look at extraterritorial scope. Three, we'll look at material scope, though extraterritorial scope is under territorial scope. Territorial scope means that everyone or any entity, body that collects, processes, or controls personal data within Uganda is also applicable to this. This law is also under this law. This law also applies to everyone who collects personal data within Uganda, who controls, collects, and processes, or even uses personal data within Uganda. Then when we look at extraterritorial scope, this applies to anyone outside Uganda, but collects, processes, or uses Ugandan citizens' personal data. You might find the NGOs that are outside Uganda, in this case, but collect personal data, Ugandan citizens' personal data, collects, processes, and uses the Ugandan citizen personal data. Then we also look at material scope. This means that this law also apply to the other means of collecting data, such as automated and non-automated means of data collecting. Well, what do we mean here? When I talk about automated or non-automated means of data collection, I'll give an example of automated means that the personal data can be collected by using automated means such as, let me give you an example of biometric means. You may go to some office or somewhere where you reach and you find that you have to access the office by using your biometric or by using your fingerprints. And in doing that, your data is being collected and That means automated means. Then, which means there is less personal or human intervention. Then non-automated means when the entity or someone collects personal data using forms. I'll give an example, like some NGOs or some other institutions may collect personal data using forms. You may be in the field collecting beneficiaries' data, but you may not have automated means. In this case, you may use forms to collect personal data. you also this law also apply to such measures. Okay, you also allow me to look at key definitions of some our key definitions under this law. We'll look at personal data. When I talk about personal data, what do you understand by personal data? Personal data means the information that can identify a person. This include names, include identification number. In this case, I may use NIN number. This include physical address. This include emails, anything that can identify someone. That can identify someone is personal data. Then we also look at data subject. Data subject is an individual. It's like me and you. Is an individual from whom or in respect of whom personal information is requested, collected, or even stored. In this case, it's me and you. If my data is collected, I'll become a data subject. If your data is collected, you become a data subject. Then we also look at data collector. This means someone, an entity, or person who collects someone's data. Then we also move forward and look at data controller. Data controller in this case means a person who determines the purpose for and the manner in which the personal data processed or is to be processed. Okay. We also look at data processor. Data processor is this refer to persons, any other person or any employee of the data controller who process data on behalf of the data controller. In this case, I may give an example of, let's say, banking institution or financial institutions such as banks. You may you may share with let's say an entity on a NGOA may share personal data or data of the staff to let's say to the bank to process the staff salaries. So in this case, the bank A is processing data, personal data, or processing salaries using personal data that has been shared by NGOA. So in doing that, the institution bank becomes data processor because it's processing salary, is using the data that has been shared by NGOA. Then we'll also look at data protection officer. The law, I want you to understand that the law requires that every entity that collects data, processes data, or controls data that registered in his office should appoint or designate a point of contact to the office. And in this case, this would be a data protection officer who is responsible for ensuring the compliance with the act. Okay, when we move forward, we are going to look at processing. Processing, this may be any operation performed upon personal data. It may be retrieval, it may be transmission or alignment, any operation that are performed on personal data. Okay, you allow me also to look at the functions of the office. I want you to understand that this office is mandated to carry several functions. One of those is to oversee implementation and enforcement of the act. How is this done? This is done through ensuring that all entities collecting personal data, controlling personal data, or processing personal data complies with the office by registering with the office. Then two, the office, which is personal data protection office, is also mandated to formulate and oversee programs intended to raise awareness about the act. Thirdly, we also look at the office is mandated to establish and maintain data protection register. This is done. This is currently this is on our portal, which is PDPO.go.ug. Currently, when you go to the portal, you're able to see all the entities that have registered with the office through the data protection register. We are also going to look at another function of the office, which is also to set, monitor, and regulate standards of personal data protection. The office is also mandated to conduct audits to ensure that compliance by controllers and processors. How is it? How is this done? Every financial year, the office decides on the number of entities and reaches out to them, conducts audits to ensure that they are compliant with the law. Lastly, the office is mandated to receive and investigate complaints relating to the violation of the Act. Okay, you also allow me to look at the benefits of the compliance with data protection laws. One, we have better data management. How is this done? When you're registering, I want you to know that we require you to have policies in place to make sure that you meet the requirements to register with the office. When we talk about policies, we look at data protection policy, we look at information security policy, we look at privacy policy. But in this case, I will talk about data protection policy that will improve on your data management and understanding what data you hold and where is it stored and how it can be used. When you have a data protection policy in place, data protection policy covers certain things such as data retention period, rights of the data subject, covers how the data is collected from the word go and how is it used, how is it controlled, how is it secured. In doing all this, this policy guides you, and in guiding you, doing this, you end up having better data management practices in place. Secondly, we look at improved community confidence. Having transparent data processing practices in place, it will improve trust in data subjects. It will improve trust in those that you're collecting data from. Because if I know that an NGOA is registered and compliant with it's registered with the office, I know it will follow all the good practices that the office has set that is under the law. So I will have trust. I will know that I will not find my data on everywhere. That maybe I might give you an example. You've seen where you go somewhere to buy a chapati and you find they're using our information to cover, to use as covers. So if I know that NGOA is registered, I'll be confident that they will not be able to disclose my data without my consent. So in return, data subjects are going to have trust in you and improving confidence in you. Okay, then we also look at avoiding potential fines and imprisonment. The law is clear that every data collector, processor, and controller should register with the office. Those that don't register with the office, those that don't comply with the law, because registration is the first line of compliance. If you don't register with the office, that's that you're going to be fined. Some will get punishment of imprisonment, such that those officers that knowingly or willingly authorize or permit non-compliance will face such punishments. So in doing this, you will avoid, in registering with the office or in complying with the law, you will avoid such penalties and fines. Then to the staff, we also look at the staff. Data protection and privacy compliant company will ensure that your personal data is kept safe and your privacy is protected. Because you as a staff, you're also a data subject. You as a staff, you're also a data subject. Knowing that your entity is registered, you will also know that you also have trust. You also know that your privacy is protected, because they will not disclose your data to any other party or third party without your consent. So to the staff also, you also know that your data is secured, protected, and your privacy is protected as well. Lastly, we also look at compliance ensures that organizations respect the rights of individuals whose personal data is collected and used. Of course, when you look at the law clearly talks about the rights of the individual, rights of the data subjects. When you're compliant, when registered with the office, you make sure that you will not breach that right. you make sure that all the laws, or everything that is talked about in the law will be compliant too. So in doing this, make sure that the entity are compliant and they respect rights of the individuals and rights of the data subjects. Okay, we've reached at our main topic, which is disclosure of personal data. That is our main topic for today's session. When I talk about disclosure of personal data, what do I mean? Disclosure means to reveal or to tell or to share person or personal data to any other body in Uganda or abroad. And the law requires this to be done lawfully and fair. I want you to know that during registration, you will be required to tell us, to inform us which entities do you disclose data to. Which entity do you disclose data to? And in doing this, you will also tell us the purpose why you're disclosing data to such entities. Disclosing of data, you may disclose data to third parties, you may disclose data to maybe government, you may disclose data to regulators, you may disclose data to donors. In doing this, you will tell us what are the entities that you're disclosing data to. Okay, then what I want you to know, you should know that it's not wrong to disclose personal data. However, the registration is trying to make sure that you understand that you're actually disclosing personal data. Sometimes we've been finding some applications that have been shared or submitted. People say that they don't disclose any personal data. Yet when we ask them later whether they send information or bank accounts to certain banks to be able to pay staff, they agree. And in doing this, they are disclosing personal data. Okay, I've listed some few examples that I would want you to show, that I would want you to look at on my slide here. I've listed some few examples that you may disclose data, personal data to in your day-to-day running of your activities. These may be regulators, as I've said, under regulators, you may be, in this case, like for NGOs, I have listed here NGO Bureau. How do you share data with NGO Bureau? In doing this, because I'm sure that you file returns at the end of every year. So in doing this, while filing returns, I'm sure that the forms that you share, the forms that you submit have directors' names. It may have ID information of your directors. So in doing this, you're disclosing personal data. Then we also look at URSB for registration of documents. Also, it may also include directors' names, address, telephone contacts, and etc. So in doing this as well, you're disclosing personal data. Then you also look at URA for taxes. Maybe every financial year or every at the end of the start of the financial year, you pay taxes to, or you file returns to URA. And in doing this as well, those documents may include names, physical address, and even TIN numbers. And this is also considered to be disclosing of personal data. Then we also have donors. I'm sure that most of the NGOs share photos, share information, staff information, and even beneficiary information to donors for maybe financial support purposes, for even any other purposes. So in doing this, you're disclosing beneficiaries information, beneficiaries data, personal data. Then we also look at NSSF. We'll also look at companies that you may be, they may be your service providers, such as the companies that provide cloud services. Those who have websites, you might find that your website is hosted in in Europe, and in doing that, and your website has maybe that option of capturing information. Let's say if I'm logging into your website and I want to inquire about something, and in doing that, I will be asked to enter my name, my contact, my address, and in doing all that, it captures my information. It captures my personal data. And you may find this website is hosted in Europe. And doing that, it's not seated in Uganda, it's seated outside Uganda. So in doing all this, my information is being disclosed to certain disclosed outside Uganda. Then we also look at commercial banks, insurance companies, academic institutions, parent companies. In this case, I've also talked about commercial banks before. You may disclose beneficiary information or even staff information to banks to process their salaries. So in doing all this, you're disclosing personal data. Okay, well, another thing on this part that we'll also look at in our practical bit of the presentation, we have transfer of personal data. It's also under this section when you're on the portal, when you're doing the registration, which has 6 steps. This also falls under step 5. We also look at it in our practical bit. Transfer personal data means making personal data available to persons, organizations that are abroad through processing or storing such information. I want you to understand that on this section, you are also required to inform us of the countries that you may be transferring personal data to. For example, where your website are hosted, I've talked about this, whether you have donors that you report to, and while reporting, you may share names of beneficiaries, names of the directors. So on this part, what you need to tell us, what we want to know from you or to hear from, to see from you is telling us or informing us the country that you're transferring data to, the purpose of the purpose why you're transferring data to that country, and the brief description of the personal data you're sharing or you're transferring to certain countries. Then the law is even clear on this, that however you may transfer personal data, you should know that the law is clear that transferring personal data, kindly, you should ensure that where you're transferring personal data, that country should have appropriate or adequate measures to protect personal data that you're transferring to, or the data subject has to consent that my data should be transferred. If the data subject has not consented, that will be against the law. So in transferring personal data to some other countries, you may have this in mind, that you have to make sure that the country that you're transferring data to should have the same or should have at least adequate measures in place for the protection of that personal data that you have transferred to. In this case, I would give an example like Kenya. I'm sure Kenya has the same office like ours here, which handles everything. That it has Data Protection Commission office that also regulates every entity that collects data, controls data, and processes personal data. So it's your mandate. It's a reminder that whenever you're going to transfer personal data or store personal data into some other country, you should make sure that that country has at least adequate measures in place to make sure that there's protection of personal data and privacy of personal data. And another thing which is also very, very important, the data subject has to be informed and has to authorize his data or her data to be transferred to any other country. Okay, we're going to look at this last part of our presentation, which is Form 3. Form 3 is also a requirement. I want you to know that Form 3 is the requirement that is mandatory under the law. Form 3 is undertaking not to process or store personal data in a country outside Uganda, unless that country has adequate measures in place to make sure that there is protection of personal data, there is security on personal data, and even the personal data is secured and there is privacy on the personal data. At least it should be equivalent to the protection provided for under the act permitted under the registration. This form is found on step 6 of the registration. You will, when we are going to look at that in our practical bit. And I want you to know that this form 3, it should be have the company name that is collecting data. We are going to look at that. It should be signed and it should indicate the place where it has been signed from. And it also, what is very, very, very important of this form 3, it should be commissioned by the Commission of Oath. Most of the entities have been submitting form 3 without commission, without being commissioned by the Commission of Oath. What do I mean by the Commission of Oath? It should be verified. It should be verified by the lawyer who is the commissioner for oath. You may find this if you have lawyers, they may advise you on this. If they are not, if they don't have that stamp of commissioner for oath, they can direct you where you can have this service. Okay. Thank you. I want allow me now to stop sharing and I share my screen of the practical bit of this session. Okay, someone kindly confirm for me if you can view this screen. Anita, kind of confirm for me if you're on.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, so we are going to have a quick run through on how to register and how to complete the registration. Remember, everything is automated. You don't need to come to office or to do anything. What you need to go to do is to log on to our website, which is pdpo.go.ug, and it will display. This is our landing page. It will display like this. Then you will, if it's your first time, you will click on register. So when you click on register, it's going to give you this form. This is a landing page as well. When you click on register, it's going to give you the options on how to register or how to create the account. As you can see, the fields that are displayed here, we have the name of the organization. Here will be required. It's a field that is required. You cannot proceed without filling in or typing your name of the organization. Here you're required to put the name of the organization. Then we have the field of organization email. In this case, you will have to provide the organizational email. We usually recommend that you use the email that you have access to, because some entities have been sharing or using the email that they have no access, and in doing that, they may not have access to the account that has been created, which may create issues back and forth in in the registration process. Then on the next field, this is where you provide organizational telephone number. Then we have these two fields here, the first name and the last name. Here we expect you or we require you to put the name of the person who is helping the entity to register. Then after that, you agree on the terms and conditions and submit. When you submit, you receive a notification email with the login credentials on the email that you have used here. Kindly, there are three important things here: organization name, email address, and the telephone contact. And I want you to know that these can only be used once or can be used in access account creation once. The system does not allow duplication or duplicates. Once it captures, let's say, an email cannot be used again or twice, even this applies to a phone contact. Okay. So when you receive the logins, you will come back here on our portal. You click login. So when you click login, it will give you the option of logging into your account and proceed with the registration process. Now, in this case, I'm going to use the test account that has been used by my colleagues on the previous webinars, so that we can have this done very fast. Okay. Here you will put, it will require you to put the username, which is your email. Okay. Just a moment. I'm trying to logging in and take you through. Then here you will be required to put your password, enable to authenticate. I'm trying to log in, take you through on this practical bit. So when you punch in your username and password, you're able to access your account, PDPO account in this case. Let's give it time to load fully so that we can move on with the registration process. Okay, when you log into your account, this is how it displays. You will look at your right corner here. You will see the name of the person that has registered on behalf of the organization. In this case, that would be a data protection officer. You look at the data dashboard, which has report the breach, company registration, a renewal, new application, final registration, update registration. And in this case, since it's a new application, we will go to new application. Then let's say that the entity has registered already and they want to do a renewal, you will click on a renewal. Or if you want to update your application, you will click on update registration. But in this case, we are doing a new application, so we are going to click new application. So when you click on new application, the application process, the application form, which is automated, is going to display. As you can see, it has 6 steps, 1 up to 6, and all you cannot jump to step 2 or 3 without completing step 1. This was also presented by my colleagues. So what we are in respect of time, we are just going to have run through very fast on this part of applicant, which is step 1. It requires you to put the name of an organization, but remember it has already been captured while registering. So you will skip this. Here the telephone number is already there. Then the email is already there. What you will fill in is the category. When you click on the category, it shows you the data collector, data processor, data controller. So in this case, if you're a data collector, you will click on the collector. If you're a data processor, you also check the box of data processor. If you're a data controller, of course, all we are data controllers. Let's say all the, maybe in this case, all the NGOs may be the data collector and controller. So in this case, if you apply, or if you fall in this category, or if you fall in the three categories, you're going to check all the three boxes. Then if maybe your data collector and processor, you will check the two options, which is data processor and collector. Then here you will select the name, the type of the organization. There is already the drop down, the options are there. You will select where you fall. Then the country of incorporation. Now this one selected France. If it's Uganda, if it's UK, you will select UK. Then here you also you're required to type in or to share or to put the registration number of your company. Then the sector, in case your sector is not here, already the options that are provided, you can select others. And when you select others, you're going to be also asked to specify the sector. You're able to type in the sector here manually. Then the physical address, the nature of the business, also the nature of the business subcategories. All these are already there. You will select where you fall. So after this, you will there's this option of save. Make sure that you save. In case you want to log out, you can resume where you had stopped. So after saving, you click on next. So next is the option of data protection officer. Remember, I talked about data protection officer. The law requires that whoever collects, processes, and controls personal data should designate or appoint a data protection officer, who is the contact of the office and who takes everything, who manages everything that falls under the data protection within the organization. So here you will select yes. If you select no, yes, you may proceed, but still we will to avoid back and forth. We will still reach out to you after receiving your application and guide you or require you to fill in the details of data protection officer. So here you'll fill in yes, and you select yes and put in the name of the data protection officer, the address, the telephone number, the email address. Then we also require you to indicate the title of data protection officer. Other than data protection officer, he can also hold another position at the entity. So after that, you also don't forget to save and also click next. Then here we also, on this part 3, it's data collected or processed. On this section, we want to know you're required to display or to inform us or to tell us which kind, what is the source of your data. There's already a drop down here where it has employees, clients, and customers, suppliers, contractors, visitors, guests. If you're collecting visitors' data at your gate, you also select this. If you have employees, staffs, you select this as your source of data. Then you may say that for us NGOs, we don't have clients, but in this case, the beneficiaries will be the clients. So you also select this and select supplier or contractors if you share data or if you collect data of suppliers or contractors that you deal with. Okay, so you move down after that part. There is what we call personal data collected or processed. So these are personal identifiers, which we also talked about in our third slide, where there is name, postal address, nationality. So all these fields, whatever you collect, you will have to check. If you collect emails, when you're collecting personal data, you will select here. If you collect date of birth while collecting personal data, make sure that this is also checked. If you collect bank account of, let's say, of your employees, if you want to pay them through the bank, if you pay them through the bank, or even for other purposes, you also select here. If you say, let's say you collect NIN, you also select here NSSF. So you will check all this if they apply to you. So we also have individual commercial information. Let's say if you collect collect, let's say, records of personal property, you also select here. Then we also look at sensory data. What do we mean by sensory data here? This is the personal data that collected maybe through the, if you have CCTV cameras in at your workspace or at your NGO at your organization, and and these CCTV cameras captures visual and audio, you will also select this. There are two. If you don't, if the cameras don't collect visual, you will select but of course this is this is automatic, they collect visual. But in case if they don't collect audio, you will not check this. But if they collect both, then you have to check all the boxes. Then also we have internet and similar network activities. This is on the website. If your website collects browsing history, if your website have that interaction with the data subject where we need to maybe fill in our data, contact, all that to inquire about something, then you select, you will check this box. If it collects the IP address, also you need to select this. Okay, then there's also geolocation data. If you also you collect that, you also fill in or check this box. Then educational information, you can also check on that. Then professional, also you can check on this. For further information on this, you can also refer to our previous webinars that have been uploaded on our YouTube channel. Maybe in case I'm moving too fast, you can refer to that because they're already there uploaded on our YouTube channel. Then you can also select this whatever when this applies to you, inference drawn from other personal data to collect individual profiles. In this case, if you're doing data analysis, let's say your entry that is doing data analytics to understand the preferences, the characteristics of your data or subjects, in this case, you are going to select all these fields. Then we also have special person data. What are the special person data? We have financial information, we have political opinion, we have health status or medical records. If you collect this special person data, let's say financial information, process salaries for your employees, you will select this. If let's say you collect health status or medical records, maybe it provide insurance for your for your data subjects or for your employees, you also select this. If you collect religious and philosophical brief, also you have to select this. And after that, you have to save. When you save, you will receive a pop-up that your draft has been saved successfully to avoid losing your data. So here you will continue to the next step, which is step 4, which is purpose and retention. And with purpose and retention, you're required to tell us or to inform us for what purpose, why are you collecting this data, for what purpose. There are already options here, you will select where applicable. Then when you select this, you will have to specify the law. Let's say, if I give an example of, let's say, collection processing is required by the law, you will put the law here. Let's say, like, I give an example of NSSF Act, Employment Act, Income Tax Act, Companies Act. Then you also specify the service or stroke the product provided. You will tell us what are the service or product that you provide, because that you provide to data subjects. So it also has specified the legal obligation, which is the compliance with the law. Then these are also, when we look at total records, percentage, and retention period, these other two are optional. You can leave that. If you know, then you can fill. Then what is important is retention period. We want to know how long do you keep this data? How long? You will just tell us. Maybe if you keep this data for 10 years or 5 years, we indicate here. So you will save and proceed to the next field. Now, this is our main topic of today's session. This is step 5, which is disclosure and transfer. Remember, when I was presenting when I was sharing our slides on disclosure and transfer, I talked about disclosure as I described disclosure as a mean refer to the disclosing or sharing of personal data within or abroad. So here we are asking you, do you disclose personal data to other person or bodies? This is very important. You'll come here and select yes. And when you select yes, this you will have these fields that are going to display where you add person or body. Then I remember I talked about purpose. Why do you disclose my data to? Why do you disclose personal data to certain entity or certain third party entity? So you will click on add. Let's say we can, for instance, now we can use NGO below, or we can use URA as an example. So when you put URA, you have to tell us why are you sharing data to or disclosing data to URA. Then that's what that's the purpose. So here it will be, let's say, for taxation purposes. And you save this. Then you will, on this part, you're required to share all the entities that you share data with. Let's say URA, let's say maybe you have donors abroad, can put donors. Then the purpose maybe could be financial support, or you can put yes, financial support. Okay, you save. You can put maybe URSB, reason or the purpose, filing returns. Okay, filing returns. So on this part, this is just an example to show you that on this part, you're required to disclose, to list all the entities that you disclose data to. Then when you move down, don't forget to put the purpose. Make sure that the purpose is there. So because we want to know why you're disclosing data to, let's say, URA. Then on this part, also I talked about this, which is transfer of personal data outside Uganda. You will select, if you transfer data personal data outside Uganda, you will select yes. And when you select yes, you will have the option of add a country, purpose of transfer, then brief description of the personal data that you're transferring outside Uganda. So I may say, let's say, let me just give you an example. I may say, I may select United States. Then purpose, I may put web hosting. If your website, let's say, is hosted on the servers that are in USA, so you might put the purpose here, web hosting. Then the brief description of data that is transferred, you can put telephone contact. Okay, you can put maybe name of the beneficiaries, name, then you can put like an address, and you save. So let's say that you also transfer data to, let's say Angola, and the purpose maybe for financial support. You might also put financial support. Then on the brief description, as I told you, you have to disclose, or you have to tell us the data that you transfer outside, or that you transfer to that specific country that you have listed up there, which is, in this case, we can put now. Can put also address. Okay. Can put financial information for, let's say, financial support purposes, and also save. So remember what I talked about here, that before the law requires you that before you transfer data outside Uganda or to any other country, you should make sure that that country has adequate measures in place to make sure that there's security and protection of data that is transferred to. And also, it's very important to know that the data subject has to be informed and has to consent, allow you to share or disclose or transfer his or her data outside Uganda. So here you will save. After this part, we've been most of the entities that have been sending in application have been leaving this step and filled in. So it's very important to complete this part to disclose to tell us and to list or to inform us on the bodies that you share data with, and also the countries that you transfer data to. Then after that, you will save and continue with the process, which is last step, where I want to look at Form 3, because this is where you find Form 3. Remember, as I told you, Form 3 is a required document that is mandatory under the law. You cannot proceed with this registration process without this Form 3. You have to have this Form 3 downloaded, printed, and you have it signed. Anita, do you see this? Do you see Form 3? Kindly someone confirm. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Anita. This is how the Form 3 looks like. Though I just want to take you. How do you get this Form 3? Okay. So while you about to complete the process, registration process, on the last step of the registration process, the form you will find Form 3 here, where there is attached Form 3. There are two options. There is download Form 3 and upload Form 3. So in this case, remember, you don't have Form 3. This is a new application. What you need to do is to click on download. When you click on download, it will download Form 3. As you can see, it's already have your name is already there, because it picks the name that you use to register or to create the account. So that Form 3, this is how it looks like. It has the company name well stated here. Then there's the date when you downloaded it, when you created the account. Then there is a space for to indicate where this Form 3 has been signed at. Then there's the name and title of a person making undertaking. Remember, I said this Form 3 should be signed by someone at the level of director, CEO, or any other person that signs on behalf of the entity. So that person, one of the directors, will sign here, will make sure put the indicator, the name here, the name of the place. Then what is very important is this part before me, Commissioner for Oath. This has been a challenge for many entities that have been submitting applications. We find them that they have done everything, but they have forgotten this part of before me. Now, this is the part that I was talking about, need to be commissioned. So after downloading this form, you make sure that you print it, have it signed. Then if you have the commissioner of oath in your entity, then that will be an advantage. You will just have to stamp here and sign. Then what you will do, you have to scan this form and bring it back here. Okay, bring it back here and upload it as a commissioned Form 3. In case you don't get Form 3 commission of oath commission for you, you can maybe you can reach out to your lawyers or any advocate or any law firm in the country. I think everywhere in every district you are able to find one to have this form commissioned. Okay, I think with this, Anita, allow me to stop here and hand over to you. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Norman. That was very, very informative. I hope that we have been able to learn a thing or two and that will be able to help us to complete our application. So I am going to go to the questions. Members, if you had put your question in the chat earlier, I would request that you type it in the Q&A panel as well, so that we do not miss out on it. So Norman, the first question we have here is, would you kindly explain more the process of payment for the 100K? Do I need to first pay then continue with the registration process, or can I register then pay later? Which one comes first? Over to you, Norman.
Thank you, Anita. That's a good question. For the payment, we have been sharing this information on our website, on our YouTube channel. But what you need to know, the payment is 100, and if you're asking whether you have to first pay or you can pay later, yes, you can do. You can register, create your account, and register. Move on with proceed with the registration. But remember, you will not be able to submit your application without a proof of payment. Because on the last step, I can, if you can allow me to share my screen again here. Just a moment. Okay, on this last step of application, you're required to upload three attachments. One is a supporting document, as you can see here, a supporting document, e.g. Information security policy that is supporting the security measures here. Then two is the Form 3 that I've talked about. Three, lastly, this is at option. You can see here there is option of attached proof of payment. The first attachment, which is a supporting document, that one you can proceed. The system will allow you to proceed even if you don't attach that. But what is very important here is Form 3 and a proof of payment. So you cannot proceed without these two attachments to submit your application. So either you can pay first, or you can proceed and pay while you're proceeding with the registration. But it's important that you have that proof of payment, because the system will not accept your application, or it will not allow you to submit without attaching the proof of payment here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Norman, for that. I hope you've been answered. The next question is, are schools also required to register with the Personal Data Protection Office?
Okay, thank you, Anita. That's also a good question. Yes, I may say all school, every person that collects data, controls data, or processes personal data has to register with the office. Even if it's a small, even if it's, let's say, I may give an example, even if I have a company that has 3 or 4 employees, where I collect their data, personal data, in this case, maybe their financial information details, maybe like their bank accounts details, to make sure that I process their salaries, which there I will be required to register. So in this case, every entity or everyone or everybody that collects personal data is required to register with the office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone asks, how can I go back to take my information? Is it allowed? I think they mean information in the register, in the application form.
Anita, can you hear me? Kindly make it clear. I repeat that question, sorry.
Someone is asking if they had already filled their application form, is it okay for them to go back and check the information that they collected, they registered?
Yes, thank you so much, Anita. That's also a good question. Yes, if you want, you're allowed at every time you want to visit your account, you're allowed. You have remember you have your username and password. So in case you want to go and update your, let me also share the screen once again. In case you want to go back and check on your registration or edit anything, you're allowed to go back and edit or check on your information that you have filled in while the registration process. This is okay. This is allowed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. There is a couple of questions around that same question you just answered. I will just read them just to confirm that they've been answered. One is, how can I correct information at this point? Because I had checked visual at the sensory data, but now I just realized it's not applicable to our entity. Another question was, so on the section of disclosure, I had skipped it and the application was sent and it was approved. Is there a chance to fill it again and resend? So Norman, I read them to just confirm that all those were answered in the last question you just attended to.
They were answered.
Okay, thank you very much.
Though Anita, I can add on that the first one where they say someone is asking whether he can edit after finding out that they checked on wrong fields. That's visual and audio. Yes, if you feel like you want to edit that, you can reach out to us on registration email. You can send us a request. We will make sure, because when you submit, you'll not be able to make changes. Those fields become inactive. So in this case, if you feel after this session, if you feel like you have checked in the wrong fields, you can reach out to us on a registration email, which is registration@pdpo.go.ug, to make sure that to enable you or to make those fields active so that you can make changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. I'll move on to the next question. Someone asked, at what point am I able to get my certificate? Over to you.
Okay, that's also a good one, Anita. Thank you. At what point would you get your certificate? Yes, when you complete your registration and submit the application, the application is going to be received, and once upon the when we receive that application at the office, the application is going to be reviewed on the technical and on the legal side. When everything is okay, we proceed, or we share this that the application is approved, and once it's approved, you're able to receive your application. And in this case, maybe if we find out under review, and when we are reviewing your application and we find out maybe there's that required information that is missing on the application, we always reach out to the entities or to those that have applied. We always reach out to them through calls and organize Zoom calls to enable them to guide and to enable them have required information filled in appropriately to enable them they get their certificates as soon as possible. The process does not take time. If everything is okay, it may not take. It may take 2 to 3 days to get your certificate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, we are registered, but we did not get a registration number. I think this is the registration tracking number. What can we do to be able to get it?
Of course, okay. Thank you, Anita. That's also a good question. Though I don't think the system will do that. But in the case it happened, kindly reach out to us on a registration email, which is registration@pdpo.go.ug. We will be able to support you on that. After this session, kind of reach out to us, or you can even send your mail right now. We'll be able to reach out to you for support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question, someone is asking, what are the penalties of not registering? Over to you, Norman.
Of course, the law is clear. that the entities that don't register or comply with the act, they are going to be penalized. The penalties, they can be fined or even imprisonment. So it's why would you wait for why would you wait for penalties, or why do you force yourself to be penalized or to be fined? So in this case, I would not okay, I would recommend or advise you to register in order to avoid these penalties or fines that may be imposed on your entity or even as you as an individual for the entity. Thank you, Anita. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to the next question. Okay, someone was asking about whether registration can be edited, but this question has been answered. So I'll move on to the next question. On the part of Form 3, someone is asking for clarity on the field of place that is supposed to be filled in.
Sorry, I didn't capture that, Anita. Kindly repeat
Under
that for me.
Under Form 3, someone is asking which field are they supposed to fill in? Sorry.
Okay, kindly allow me to share again this my screen so that I can. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, I said when you download through the account, your name is already, the name of the entity is already stated here. But in case if you download this form from the website, you're also required to fill in this field where you have to state the name of the organization, the address of the organization. Then also you have to fill in the date when you're signing this, when you're having this signed. Then also there's this field of name and title of the person making undertaking. This is, I've talked about, it can be only signed by the person who signs on behalf of the entity, maybe the ED, maybe one of the directors or CEO. Then also you must have also signed on that form. Then the last part, which is important also, I talked about, if you can see my screen here, where there is before me commissioner for oath, where you have to make sure that this form is commissioned, there's a stamp for commission of oath, and also there's a signature. So those are the fields that need to be filled in under on this Form 3. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. I hope you have been answered. Someone is asking, how can we upload our filled in information? That question is really not clear. If you can just ask it again, just phrase it differently and ask it again, and we'll be able to answer you. Someone asks, Norman, what does one have to do if they do not have a security policy in place yet? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Anita. That's also another good question. I talked about that. Yes, if you don't have information security policy, yeah, it's not okay. For now, it's not mandatory that you should have, though the law recommends that every organization or entity or anyone who collects personal data or processes personal data should have such policies in place. Such policies such as information security policy, data protection policy, or privacy policy. Though it's not mandatory, it may not hold you back not to register, but we recommend that in process, or you can register and make sure that you develop one. You have that in place after registration. Though it's not mandatory, but we highly recommend that all that collects personal data, collects, controls, or processes personal data should have such policies in place, because they guide on how to collect data, how to secure data, how to have data secured, protected, and handled in the right manner. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you very much, Norman. The next question I have here is, in case the deadline finds when an organization has not yet completed the process, but they paid the fees, will such an organization be penalized?
Can you repeat that question? If they have just paid or created the account, it's not clear.
No, if I have just paid, but I've not started on the registration process.
I think it's very important to first create the account and make sure that you have filled in everything. Then you can pay, or you can do that because payment it may not be in our records. Yes, it may, but I think it would be better to first create the account, and because when you submit, we are able to see when did you create the account. Was it before the deadline or after the deadline? So I think in this case, I may recommend that you first create the account, go through the registration process, because you're able to save and you can come back to the application form later or submit later. So payment may not guarantee, but maybe creation of the account may guarantee that. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. I'll move on to the next question. Someone is asking, still on the security policy, is there a specific format for coming up with a security policy? If yes, is it okay for you to share it with us?
Okay, that's a good one, Anita. Yes, we may say that we don't have that format, though we have what we call information security checklist. So in that information security checklist, you may be able to assess your internal, you may be able to assess your organization. Let's say maybe if the information security checklist talks about network policy, talks about password policy, talks about remote access policy, talks about account creation policy, email security. So in this information checklist, information security checklist, it can help you to develop one, to come up with the security information policy. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. I see a question here. At the last step, please give some light on the supporting documents. I want to believe that this is the Form 3, which you have already reshared. So I would like to believe that this question has been answered. And someone is asking the next question. If one has registered and at the end of the year there is no update to make in the process of renewal, should they pay the registration fees again?
Okay, thank you, Anita. Yes, because the law requires all states that every entity should renew after when the application or the certificate expires. You're required to renew your certificate or your certificate. So whether you have not updated or whether you don't have any update on what you have been collecting as personal data, still you will be required to renew your application or your certificate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. Someone is asking, what is the deadline for registration?
Okay, Anita, thank you. That's also a good question. Okay, the deadline that was shared, that is shared by NGO Bureau in the memo that was shared. That is 30th November this month. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. I see another question here. We had answered something to do with whether schools should be able to register. So someone asks, if schools fall under a certain congregation or an organization, can we register as an organization or we have to register as different entities?
Okay, thank you, Anita. This would, okay, this, in answering this question, it will depend on how the school is registered. Is it an independent entity or it falls under that parent company? So if it's registered under, if it's registered independently, then they will be required to register. But if it's registered under the parent company, then they will not need to register. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. There is another question. Does the office issue a certificate of registration? I think this has been answered. After your registration, you'll be given a certificate of registration. Another question here is that small firm keeping a visitor's book supposed to register?
Anita, kindly repeat that. Sorry, I didn't capture that.
The question is, we are a small firm, but we keep a visitor's book. Are we supposed to register?
Yes, that's a good one. Yes, Anita, as I remember in my presentation, I talked about that. And the law requires, the law is very clear that whoever, if you look even at the where I shared my practical bit of the registration on the section 3, there was a source of data. Then under that source of data, there was a field of visitors or guests. So in the case, the law is very clear here that everyone who collects data, who controls data or processes data. And in this case, how do you collect data? Even if you collect my name or even my address, let's say Norman Kushaba, and then telephone contact, that's my personal data. They can identify me. So everyone who collects that simple or small data, personal data, is also required to register with the office. Because visitors book, I'm sure they collect name of the visitors, they collect the telephone number, and also maybe they may also collect the NIN number on the ID. So to answer that, yes, you're also required to register with the office. Thank you, Anita. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman, for answering that. The next question is, what is the renewal period? I think he's trying to mean at what point am I supposed to renew my registration?
Okay, thank you, Anita. That's also a good one. Of course, the certificate expires after 12 months. That's a year. Though the law requires you to start the renewal process 3 months before the expiry of your certificate. So let's say that your application, your certificate expires in December. So you will require to start a renewal process in September. So yes, that's the period when you're supposed to start the renewal process.
Okay, thank you very much, Norman. I can see it's already past time. I will just take like only 1 or 2 questions and then we end this session. Someone asked, kindly guide on which section this is. Okay, this question is not clear. If you could just rephrase it and ask, I don't know that section you're really asking about, please rephrase your question and we'll be able to respond to you. Okay, I think I'm going to end this session. Thank you very much, all of you that have attended. Yes, we are going to come to the close of this session. Thank you all for attending. If you have any more questions, kindly reach out to us. The email for registration has been typed in the chat. Just copy it and send us an email. If you have any issues coming up with your registration, we'll be able to get back to you and answer them. Thank you very much. I am going to close this session. It is 11:20 already. Thank you very much for your time. Our next session will be on Wednesday next week. I would like to thank our partners, the Defenders Protection Initiative and the NGO Bureau, for organizing these webinars with us. A kind reminder that the deadline for registration is end of this month. So kindly make sure you have completed your registration by then so that you're on the good side of the law. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.